anyways, the finale, the summary, to bring it all together, what we need to do to rally the troops, to build some camaraderie, to just accent the entirety of the episode, is we need to talk about how awful the Alan Lazard takes were all season. And this is the third time we're doing it. So like we've practiced this, we've perfected this. And the great thing is that Alan Lazard has given us no indication to ever change this stats. So we can just recycle this. Maybe every episode, we'll see. Every second week, I don't know. We'll play by ear.
Yeah, I've basically changed the name of two different players this year. I refuse to ever call Alan Lazard or Russell Gage by their actual name. I only call them former round 6 best ball pick Alan Lazard and former round 6 best ball pick Russell Gage, because people logged in to an app in which people spend money to pick fantasy football players, right? That's the project of Underdog or DraftKings, etc., right? And what they do when they log into that app is they pick who, at least I think this is what they try to do. They pick who they think is the best player, right? And then choices that people made was to take them instead of other players who are good, right? And that's a concerning choice. Alan Lazard has never been good. Alan Lazard has a career high of, I think, marginally over 500 yards in the NFL. That's not very good. He has never flashed in reception perception. He's never flashed in any sort of PFF receiving grades. He's never earned targets at a rate above, what was his career high in target share? I don't even know off the top of my head.
I don't know. It's 11%. Somewhere around Gabriel Davis's.
That's rude. That was unnecessary. The point is that we see this all the time with players where they go in and they have an offense that, for whatever reason, sometimes offenses don't have any good players on them in the receiving group. It's just what happens. Sometimes they blow a draft pick. Sometimes they're in a transitional phase. Sometimes a player gets hurt. Whatever it may be, this happens every year. There's some offenses that are simply alpha devoid. Last year, it was the Saints, most notably, led by Marquez Callaway. It was the Jaguars, led by some sort of triumvirate of Marvin Jones, Laquan Treadwell, and Laviska Shenault.
Wait, didn't Zay Jones have a period in that offense last year?
He was on the Raiders last year, but
he was on the Raiders. He had a period with the Raiders then. I feel like we had a little tiny bit of Zay Jones hype last year.
Yeah, he's on the Jaguars this year, and he's having a pretty nice start to the year. Anyhow, what we usually see is that the lead target earner gets like 18% of the targets, right? And that was my point on Twitter. It's like, Alan Lazard, probably going to run all the routes. Apparently he's a really good run blocker. Love to see it. Probably going to run all the routes. That means he probably will lead this team in targets in like a median outcome. It'll probably be like 17% of the targets, because that's like above his average targets per route run profile, what it would indicate. And that means that at best, he might marginally hit his ADP, like at best, right? We can like successfully draft a round 6 level player in round 6. Except that should never be the fucking focus, because beating ADP is totally meaningless. The way that we should think about our selections is not, can this player beat this arbitrary ADP mark at which we selected them in end of year finish? It's, okay, each round you have a decreasing likelihood of being able to draft a league winner. But that doesn't mean that you simply stop trying to draft them. It means that you just have to accept wider and wider bands to be able to find them. And so instead of drafting fucking Russell Gage, who got alphaed by Brashad Perriman and Scotty Miller yesterday, or Alan Lazard, who had 3 targets on 26 routes in his big debut. They're waiting for their wide receiver 1 to return. He had a 12% targets per route run. Same as Elijah Moore. You could have drafted Drake London. You could have drafted Devonta Smith. You could have drafted, in some leagues, even Elijah Moore and Rashad Bateman and these other promising year 2 bets going after Alan Lazard. Last night, we saw Alan Lazard return to the world. And the Green Bay Packers, through, 26 pass attempts. They had 26 targets available on offer. The lead target getter was 4, and it was Sammy Watkins. Alan Lazard was in a 6-way tie at 3 targets for second place. There will not be a wide receiver 1 for the Green Bay Packers. If there is, his name is probably Aaron Jones. But in fact, I would strongly project, as I posted on Twitter before the season, although countless people told me I was a total idiot, that no Packers player will have a 20% target share this year. I feel incredibly confident about that take.
Well, there's just like this like vacated targets thing. Like people look at it and they're like, oh, okay, well, Devontae Adams had 30% of the targets. He had a whole bunch of targets. And Marquez Valdes-Scantling had a whole bunch of targets. And they're gone. So somebody has to play those roles, and somebody has to be the first read on every pass, and somebody has to catch these passes. Except somebody doesn't have to, because they have to be good. Like Devontae Adams was, the first read on probably a lot of passes, or a lot of like route, like play designs, because he's good. And then when Aaron Rodgers looks at Devontae Adams on the first read, he's probably open because he's good. When Alan Lazard is the first read, he's probably not open because he's not good, which is like just such a blatantly obvious thing to say. But like, we had Alan Lazard, alpha superstar, in for one game, and he did exactly what we all thought he would do, which is a really, really low, really, really, really bad anything. He did nothing. In fact, his target rate was so low at 12.5%, it was only 3 percentage points lower than Gabriel Davis's. Like, this is a player that just simply does not earn targets. He's not good enough. So stop making him. He is fetch. No, he's not fetch. How does that saying go? I haven't seen Mean Girls in like 20 years.
Stop trying to make fetch happen.
Stop trying to make fetch happen. That's what Alan Lazard. He's fetch. He's not
for anyone who's on hour 45 of this podcast, this is the last note. I have put up my favorite tweet, honestly, of the entire summer, in which I superimposed the Gordon Ramsay idiot sandwich meme beside Adam Thielen, Hunter Renfrow, and Alan Lazard's ADP, in which they went directly behind Jerry Jeudy and Rashad Bateman, and ahead of Michael Thomas, Devonta Smith, and Elijah Moore. Ahead of Michael Thomas. People spend money to draft Alan Lazard ahead of Michael Thomas. Egregious. I think that's the show. Egregious. Don't draft bad players ahead of good players. Just draft good players.
It's that simple. Stop drafting bad players. Just stop it. If you stop drafting bad players, you'll win so many more fantasy games. Like, so many more. Michael Thomas actually will probably win leagues this year. Alan Lazard is actively disappointing you on a daily basis. He is like the Bulletproof Fantasy Football podcast the first 2 weeks of the year. Except for this one. This one was pretty good because it's actually going to air. So that is it. That is the show.
Thanks. Honestly, I appreciate I don't pick that many negative fights like you do. But there were only 3 players this year that I was just or 4 actually, that I was actively just railing against as being the most egregious picks on earth. And which was Rashad Penny, Alan Lazard, Russell Gage, and then came late, but Dameon Pierce. And I feel phenomenal. Rashad Penny, by the way, had 1.5 fantasy points. He's now at 10 fantasy points on the year. So that's what you get for drafting running back who never plays passing downs on the worst team in the NFL.